Good morning everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today's video is part 2 of May's food prep and meal planning and meals and that sort of thing. So each month, well every 6 weeks, we go and do grocery shopping 4 hours from home. There's a video of the grocery haul and the actual process of the groceries. We also receive a food hamper from A4 Community Care or Aberdeen Pantry every 4 weeks, and then because of the long time between food, we end up having to do a lot of food prep to make sure that that food lasts. So everyone watches the grocery hauls and things like that, and all my regulars know how this goes. But for those who are tuning in, I don't even know if I said my normal spiel, did I? I think I did, but anyway. Family of 8, living off-grid in Australia. We do these videos as to show how we make the food last. So with 8 of us and buying every 6 weeks, it's huge quantities of food that we need to do certain things with to make sure that they last the full 6 weeks and beyond. Some of the stuff that we buy definitely lasts beyond the 6 weeks, and some doesn't, and that's just the way it works. So I do these videos. I was doing them daily. I'm now doing them every couple of days with a few days mixed in. We're going to test that out this month. I think it's working quite well. People like the longer videos, so it's probably better to have a 25-minute video every couple of days than a 10-minute video every day. So we will see how it goes, but continue to tune in if you want to see. This is part 2, so this is the second lot of days of food prep post the 6-week grocery haul for us as a family of 8 living off-grid in Australia. And I think I've just like totally doubled what I've said and stuff like that there. I obviously a little out of rhythm with that. We're working on it, so see what we got done in this group of days. Thanks guys. So again, we're working on the short shelf life veggies and meats to get done first initially. That needs to get done in the shortest period of time possible. I'm still feeling sick, so for anyone who hasn't been watching, I've got one hell of a cold at the moment while I'm doing all this food prep. So the food prep is a little lacking to normal, and I'm getting as much as I can get done that needs to be done, but not going those extra yards at the moment. So I want to try and make sure as little as wasted as possible. I am giving myself a little bit of leniency because I know that any fruit and veg and everything that does happen to go bad gets fed to the pigs, the chickens, the ducks, the geese. It's not like it's being wasted as such, but it was bought for our consumption, so that is the primary purpose of it, and that's what I'm trying to make sure that it gets used for. So this day, the first thing I did was a big batch of zucchini fritters. We got a box of zucchini for like, I want to say $10 maybe. So that was a really good box. Actually, I think it was like a $5 box. It was cheap anyway. You can have a look at the grocery haul if you want to see what it was. So I grated up a whole bunch of it using the chopper for the Thermomix, the grater attachment that comes with my Thermomix. Which reminds me that anybody who has a Thermomix, who I've sold one to or anything else, there is a limited release of these cutters available on the 30th of May if you're trying to get them. So you need to log into the mix shop on the 30th of May to grab one of those. Anyone who's new here, I am a consultant for the Thermomix, so if you're interested in purchasing a Thermomix, just drop me a line. But if you buy anything from the Thermomix store, it asks if you can have a consultant, and if you put my name, my full name in there, then I will earn a commission off any purchases that you make in the Thermomix shop. Though I do have to sell a Thermomix in that month to earn the commissions. If I earn commissions but I haven't sold a Thermomix, I don't actually receive those commissions, but that's the way it goes. So just for anyone out there. Anyway, that was a bit of a squirrel. Here we go. So I grated all of the zucchini up using the new chopping grating attachment for the Thermomix. As I grated them, I placed them in a colander and I sprinkled a little bit of salt over each layer to draw the moisture out. Once they were all grated, they sat for about 5 or 10 minutes with that salt on them, and then I squeezed them. So I've been using these linen bags that I'm trialing for squeezing fruits, cordials, cheeses and stuff like that. So far they're holding up really well, so I'm really happy with these. I'll let you know how they keep on going with use. I like that they won't accidentally be used for anything else. I normally use the flour sack tea towels, and I love my flour sack tea towels. I'll try and remember to put another link in the description because I get asked about them all the time. They're fantastic. But because they're tea towels, they do get used for multiple things because they're tea towels. The kids use them as tea towels, and they get used to cover food, like as a covering for food and all that sort of thing. So they get a little bit marked up and sometimes get a bit greasy. I do wash them regularly, but I can't guarantee that there's going to be one freshly strip washed and cleaned when I want to strain something that I don't want to potentially contaminate. So these bags are really good because they're used only for straining. They're not used for anything else. So that's working quite well for me. Maybe I'll have to turn a couple of flour stack tea towels into straining bags. We'll see how that goes anyway. I'll have to have a look and do it. I'm hoping to sew up more of these straining bags though, and that should be fine. So I strained it all over the bag, squeezed out as much liquid as I can get, not being too pedantic, but getting as much liquid as I could get in the time that I was doing it for. I put it all in a bowl. I added half a dozen eggs and a couple of cups of flour. I didn't measure how much zucchini I was using, so I didn't measure any of the other ingredients. All I did was add half a dozen eggs and then a couple of cups of flour, mixed it all up and made sure that it looked the right consistency. I added a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper, a little bit of paprika, that sort of thing. And then got it to the consistency I like. Now, everyone likes their fritters a little bit different. So for me, like I make my okonomiyaki, I like it to be more shredded vegetable than batter. So I like the batter just to hold the vegetables together, not to be substance within my fritters. So it depends on how you like it as to how much batter to vegetable ratio you want. You can just make it to suit your taste though, by doing that, by putting a bowl of shredded veggies, any veggies you want, adding a couple of eggs and a cup of flour, and then adjusting it as needed. You can add a little bit of water, you can add more flour, anything like that. Like with the cabbage pancakes, you can add a bit of soy sauce. So it's really very variable. They're just such an easy thing to make, and they use up things well. So I cooked a great big batch of those up. I don't think I got any footage of them being served, but we had some with salsa, there was the apple butter barbecue, there was plum barbecue, I had a bit of sour cream on mine, and we just ate them as is on a plate for lunch that day. One of the other things I had to get done that day was to can the other half of the rump. So I used half of the rump that I bought on my grocery haul in the Wonder Bag in the last video for beef barbacoa in the Wonder Bag. So I had the other half of the rump to use, and I decided I was going to can that because what I really like is my canned beef like this is to make steak pies out of. So I make lard pie crust, and then I use the beef in as the filling. So all I did was cut up the rump into large chunks. I raw pack my beef like this, so I just put a teaspoon of salt in the bottom of the jars, try and evenly place fatty and meaty pieces into the jar so that's an even ratio in each jar. Pack it down well because it will shrink as it processes. The beef creates its own juices and will seal the top of and the jar will seal, like the meat will top off with a fat cap as well, so you don't need to put any liquid in here, but you feel free to put beef stock, water, however you want to do it. I like it raw packed just as is and letting the beef make its own juices. It depends what you're going to use it for, I suppose, as to whether you want extra liquid in there or not. So these jars are 31s, Fowler's Ricola 31s. They're basically equivalent to a quart. So I process these for 90 minutes with a 15-pound weight for my elevation. These use size 4 rings and size 4 lids. I clean the rims with vinegar, place the rings, then wipe the inside of the lids with vinegar as well and place them. I use 2 clips because I have issues when using a single clip because my lids tend to skew. I personally believe it's due to the quality and the stretched nature of my secondhand clips and the varied sizes, because everything I own is secondhand in Fowler's, and there is some varying sizes between glass lids and stainless steel lids and things like that. I just think that my lids aren't consistent enough. But Fowler's does recommend only a single clip. However, they don't recommend their jars for pressure canning, so maybe if they did recommend them, they might recommend 2. Who knows? But it's up to you to do your own research, make your own educated decisions and things like that. I use my Fowler's for pressure canning all the time, and I know plenty of other people who do, and we don't have a problem with it. Fowler's jars are actually a lot stronger glass, a lot thicker glass than even the current ball mason jars and stuff, so I don't know why they wouldn't be suitable. But anyway, we have always used them. Up to you to make your decisions on that. I actually placed them into the Presto here on camera because I only needed that size for the quantity of jars. So, you know, this roast we got, the taco beef out of the Wonder Bag, leftovers for the next day, and these 5 jars to make pies, which you can use a jar per pie, but we do quite often use 2. It just depends on what we're putting in the pie. But when I went to put the lid on my Presto, the pressure release valve was missing. It must have loosened and fallen out, and I can't find it anywhere. So I've had to order a new pressure release valve. So later on, you'll see, when you see me pull the jars out, it'll be out of the Buffalo canner because I had to swap canners, but I didn't show swapping canners here. So got them sorted. They were still processing when I started dinner, so because they needed 90 minutes, but it takes longer than 90 minutes to pressure can anything, obviously, because you have to wait for it to come up to pressure for 90 minutes, and then you have to wait for it to come off pressure as well. So dinner that night was green chicken curry. Again, I'm trying to use up all those vegetables. So I made coconut rice. I use just white rice, whatever I buy cheap. I'm not overly concerned about my rice. It's generally basmati or jasmine. But I also regularly get white rice in the hamper too. So it's whatever rice I have. I use the rice. I don't measure my rice, I just pour it in the pot. A tin of coconut cream and enough water to bring the water level above the rice up over the first knuckle and a little extra. I find that coconut rice needs a little bit more liquid, so I'm a little more generous with water. Bringing the liquid level up with coconut rice. I also added a few pinches of sugar. It's completely optional, but we like the flavour in the coconut rice. Then I put it on the stove on high with a lid. As soon as it comes to a boil, I turn it down to low for about 15 minutes. I judge it ready when it has all those little holes pockmarked in the top of the rice and you can't see any liquid bubbling. Then I turn it off, I take the lid off, I fluff it, and then I put the lid back on until I'm ready to eat it. And that's how I make all my rice, not just my coconut rice. So the rice cooked off and then sat there while we were waiting, and it stays warm in that pot sort of for quite a while. So I cut up a whole bunch of the broccoli and zucchini into the smallish pieces to cook in the curry, and then I sliced some chicken breasts up as well. I tend to use about 1 kilo of chicken and dice it up nice and small, and that way everyone feels like they have plenty of chicken. With all those veggies, it's really not that necessary to have too much, and there will be leftovers out of this for tomorrow as well. At that point, the jars were finished in the canner, so it had come back down to, like, the pressure had gone off, released, and I'd removed the lid. So I carefully removed the jars and placed them on a board out of the way to sit undisturbed until tomorrow. And then I'll clean the jars down, check seals, and put them on the shelf, label them and all that sort of thing. Not that beef really needs labeling, though some people have trouble telling the difference between my pork jars and my beef jars, so I'm probably better off labeling them. But anyway, and then it goes on the shelf. So it'll just sit to the side until tomorrow. You want to leave them undisturbed for 24 hours before you check the seals, and then it'll go on my shelf. For the green curry, I use the Valcom brand green curry paste. It's what we really like. At some point, I'd like to make my own paste. I think I've mentioned it before, but I'd like to be growing more of the requirements to make the paste, because it's just not cost efficient to buy like bunches of lemongrass and things like that to make the paste and then store it in the freezer. At the moment, the most economical way for me to do it is to buy the jars, especially when they're on sale, and we like the flavour of this particular green curry jar. I have tried a few that I don't like, but I do really like this Valcom one, so that's what we're doing. I was also thinking that the hot curry might help with my sinuses while I wasn't feeling well, so that was part of the reason to make this meal. So I follow the directions mostly on the jar. We tend to use the whole jar and double everything as needed. The kids do find some of the jars more spicy than others, and that's a bit strange, but I find that some of these jars, when I make it the exact same way, it's hotter than other times, and I think it just must be a variation between the chilies and stuff that they've used in each jar. Which makes sense, because seasonally changes the heat of foods and stuff too. So anyway, we use a whole jar and we double all the ingredients as necessary. Add a little bit extra sugar if it's really hot and the kids are struggling, but the sweetened coconut milk helps to tone all that down as well. So I do the normal, that as per the jar, you cook off the curry paste, you add some coconut milk, you cook that off, and then you add all your chicken and the rest of the coconut cream, and you cook the chicken off in the curry, and then all the veggies get added and cooked off as well, and you cook them off to the level that you want to cook them. My kids like them fairly soft, so I put them all in, cover it, put a lid on it, and let the veggies steam in that curry sauce for quite a while, because that's how they prefer it, and that's fine. And then we served it over the coconut rice. So it's a lovely warming meal, good in winter, but again, I sort of was hoping it might help clear my sinuses as well. The next day, I marinated some more thighs. So we need to get all of these cooked off and in the freezer for eating later in the month, but we're just working through them as we go because I've been feeling crappy. So I worked on some of them for breakfast, and I did more at a later point. I used my normal marinade that I use, which is, lemon juice, smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, bit of olive oil, mustard powder if I've got it on hand, salt and pepper, and a bit of cowboy candy. That's sort of my standard go-to marinade for chicken these days. I'd made up some of my lard sourdough tortillas earlier in the morning, and they'd been resting, waiting for me to get the chicken done and stuff. So once we got the chicken cooked off, I started on those and cooked a bunch off for the kids first. So you've only got a few in shot here because I've already fed the kids and buggered them off. Then I kept cooking more for Darryl and I. We had homemade duck egg mayo on there, which is like my absolute fave for this sort of thing, with the marinated chicken and the baby spinach that we're trying to work through. Darryl also had leftover green curry on some of his, and it was offered to the kids as well. These tortillas are just awesome. I feel like them all the time, but they are fairly time consuming to make in the quantities that we eat. And so far, I don't like them too much fridged and reheated and stuff. I much prefer them made fresh. So, you know, it is a fairly time consuming thing to make for a meal, but they are delicious, and I do make them somewhat regularly, just not as often as I would like to eat them, I think. I did have a discussion the other day too about the food additive 171, which is titanium dioxide, and how it's legal here and in the US as a food additive, but not in Europe. And whilst I don't go, heavy on food additives and stuff, I understand the reason behind it being banned. It was testing done on rats and stuff, but it was tested in its powdered form, which is more dangerous because it's breathed in rather than emulsified into food. It provides a white color, so it's in a lot of soaps and stuff too. But anyway, it turns out that the Mission burrito flatbreads, the wraps that I buy the kids from Costco each month, actually has that chemical in it. Just because I was having this discussion, I went and had a quick look at those out of curiosity, and it does. And as I said, I'm not really that. Don't really have that much of an issue about food additives. We avoid them where we can, but at the same time, I buy these flatbreads for convenience at the beginning of the month, and you just know that when you buy things for convenience, it's not going to be the best thing for you. But it gives me something to think about making these, trying to find the process of making these tortillas a little bit smoother so that I can make them more regularly rather than buying them. I don't know. Anyway, I just squirreled off again there too, didn't I? But anyway, love the sourdough lard tortillas. They're one of my favourite things to eat at the moment, just not my favourite thing to prepare. For dinner, we did the noodle stir-fry dish that I do a lot when we have fresh veg. So lots of cabbage and broccoli, normally some matchstick carrots and stuff too, though I don't see any orange in the footage this particular time, so maybe I didn't bother because we had plenty of the greens. I use the Recipe Tin Eats website Chinese stir-fry sauce generally. I mix it up in a 1 litre jar, add some water, potato starch, and shake it all up so that I can use it as I'm cooking. We do 2 big pans for the 8 of us. We use the Aldi noodles from the fresh food section, and I just put them in some boiling water to separate them. Once all the chicken and veg is how I like it, I add the noodles and the stir-fry sauce and mix it all through till it's coated and silky, and then we serve it. So it's really, really simple but super tasty. Everyone really enjoys the stir-fry noodle mix. It's a well-loved meal here, but I do prefer it with fresh vegetables than frozen, so I tend to make it more at the beginning of the month. Also, those Aldi noodles, I can make Chinese egg noodles, and I have made them before, but they require a fair bit of time. They have 30-minute need cycles and rest cycles and need cycles and that sort of thing to get them to work, to be the texture that you want. So I don't make them very often, but it means that the fresh noodles only have a fairly short date on them, so we tend to only eat them at the beginning of the 6-week period. The next day was hamper day, so you guys have seen the hamper video. I've already put that up, and what we got from there. And one of the things that we got was a couple of big bags of the Tip Top hamburger buns. So we made some breakfast sandwiches this morning we had for lunch. So we had some mayo, a few slices of bacon, I had cheese on mine, some of the baby spinach and a big fried egg, and just served them up. And so did the same thing with kids, toasted the buns, gave them a tray with some bacon and eggs and baby spinach and whatever else they wanted. They could put the apple butter barbecue on there if they wanted, or mayo or whatever else, and we just had breakfast sandwiches for lunch that day. That evening we had my faux KFC chicken for dinner, so I was sort of craving something that had mashed potato and gravy as well, a real sort of a comfort food. So I cut up the rest of the chicken breast while I was at it. I filleted and sliced it all up and put aside what we'd use for this meal. Generally speaking, as I said, I try for about 1 kilo of meat in a meal at a maximum, depending on the meal. We can get away with 500 grams depending on if it's like a high veggie and rice or something like that meal, or a big pasta meal or something. But if the meat is a sort of a like a front portion of the meal, then you use more. And KFC chicken, it's a bit of a front point. One of our roosters has decided to come and talk to me while I'm doing this, so you'll have to excuse him. So about 1 kilo of meat. So I vacuum sealed the rest up for later. for later in the month. I vacuum sealed it into 1 kilo lots. We don't buy a lot of breasts because I only use them for certain things. And I tend to freeze the breasts in raw, whereas I cook all the thighs up and freeze them cooked and marinated. The thighs are what we tend to just pull out of the freezer, pre-cooked and defrost and use on sandwiches, in frittatas, on flatbreads, in pasta dishes, things like that. Whereas the breasts I tend to use for things like green curries or the faux KFC meals and things like that. Things that they aren't marinated, they're flavored within the dish. So we buy far less breasts than we buy thighs, and I tend to freeze the breasts raw, and the thighs are marinated and cooked and then frozen. I mixed up my seasoning flour for the KFC, so I just use salt, pepper, thyme, garlic powder, onion powder, mustard powder, smoked paprika, that sort of thing in my flour, make up a seasoned flour. And then I dip the chicken in the flour, then the egg, then the flour, and then I fry it off in some shallow lard in the cast iron pan. We serve it really simply with basic potato mash, sauteed broccoli. I don't know why I keep on saying broccoli. I think it's because I'm reading while I'm talking. Anyway, sauteed broccoli and some of that really super bad for me but super tasty Maggi rich Costco gravy. It was very much a pure comfort meal, something that was just what I felt like while I was feeling crappy, and you know, it's not the greatest meal for us, but it's super tasty, so that's what we did. So that was the next few days of food prep. So we're still working on getting everything sorted, but we've made a really good dent on the veggies, which is great. So still working on the meat and everything else, and plenty more to come, but that was the next few days. So hopefully I'll get the next one out in the next couple of days, and we will see further what we've got done. But speaking as today, which is a while ahead of where I'm filming now, I'm still working through meat and stuff. So I've been really lucky that a lot of the vacuum sealed meat had some significant dates on it, which has been really great, which I've been grateful for because I felt so unwell. So I've had time to get some of this stuff done. We didn't lose too much of anything. We lost some cucumbers that we got in the hamper that just didn't get eaten by the kids, and I didn't feel like fiddly meals like rice paper rolls and stuff, but the animals really enjoyed that. And mostly we've been okay with most of the other stuff. We've had nice cool weather, which has helped. And that second fridge that wasn't working is still holding at sort of 8 degrees, so which is fine for all the veggies, but not so great for anything else. But that's fine because we've just loaded it up with the veggies and fruit, and we will deal with that. So I will see you again on the next video. I'm actually going to film, finally get to doing a Sunday chat video tomorrow as well, so I will get that up tomorrow as well. I'm going to try and get this up this afternoon. It'll be late, it'll be weird timing for the YouTube algorithm and all the rest of it, but I was supposed to do the voiceover yesterday afternoon and I didn't get there. I haven't got it done till this morning, but I'm just going to get it out of the way and get it out, do the chat video tomorrow, and then a couple of days later we'll have the next food video up for you. So that just sort of works for me and my rhythm. I'm still figuring it out. I think I need to set myself a timetable, like, I don't know, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday or something that I put videos out, and maybe that schedule will help me to figure out exactly what works for getting that rhythm going, creating a timetable for myself as well. So anyway, I'll talk more about that tomorrow because I've got a few things to share tomorrow in the chat video. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Thanks guys for joining me.